because, as Lissa said, there was so much kind of anticipation, speculation, guesswork about what this book would be. And finally, I'm done, and here it is, and people are reading it, and people are actually have something tangible to ask me about and to yell at me about, and what have you. And I will say that this town is essentially a profile, and it's not a profile of any one person, despite everyone sort of speculating or saying who came off worst or who came off okay. It's a profile of a city in a moment, and I would say that that moment's the 21st century, and it's a moment of a city transformed by wealth, by new media, by celebrity, and what it does is it charts a 5-year period in the life of the city, beginning in June of 2008 at the funeral of Tim Russert, and ending, I guess, maybe 4.5 years, ending with Barack Obama's second inauguration, and it sort of charts the life of the city through the Obama change brigades and their experience here, but ultimately through this incredible change in media that we've seen, this incredible change in the economy. I mean, the local economy has just been humming right along. I mean, this is the wealthiest community in the United States, home to 7 of the wealthiest 10 counties in the United States, this metropolitan area, at a time when the rest of the country's economy has completely faltered, at a time of incredible disconnect between the disappointment that so much of the country feels for its capital city and what seems to be a time when the capital city has reached a tipping point of self-celebration, I guess is how I put it. So I embarked on this really in 2010, but the first scene is 2008, and it's with Tim Russert's funeral, and in the time, I guess people sort of knew I was working on this book, so there have been little spasms of news cycles in which people were talking about it. There was one instance a few years ago when one of my subjects, who was the press secretary for Darrell Issa, a Republican in Congress, was sharing emails with me from people who didn't know their emails were being shared. They were reporters, some were members of Congress, and he was doing this in the guise of trying to show me how he spent his days, because he was a staff person who was rather enamored of his own narrative, and which is dangerous for a staff person, as anyone who's worked on a political staff can tell you. And Politico caught wind of this. It became a huge story. I think in addition to the 17 stories that they wrote about the book, they probably wrote about 24 more in that 1 week alone in 2011. And the media started writing about the media, and everyone was writing disclaimers about how everyone knew each other and how everyone is friends with each other. And that gave rise to what I think is my favorite line about this whole book, which was written in a tweet by my friend John Dickerson, who is the White House reporter for Slate. And he was writing about this media free-for-all and everyone writing about each other and everyone critiquing each other and everyone focusing on each other on a week in which, revolution was breaking out in Egypt. The Republicans were threatening to shut down the government, and this was the biggest story, at least on Capitol Hill. And John, actually, I'll read you 2 paragraphs. Neither of them are in my own words, but I think they're pretty emblematic. In his Washington Post column, Dana Milbank, a friend, wrote that, quote, "If Washington's political culture gets any more incestuous, our children are going to be born with extra fingers," unquote. And then I thought the best thing written about the whole episode was on Twitter by John Dickerson, a political writer for Slate, talking head for CBS News, and a you-know-what of mine. Quote, "Instead of writing a book about how self-involved Washington is," Dickerson wrote, "Mark Leibovich has gotten people to act it out in real time." Which I thought was very distilling in the moment, and actually I think he put out a similar tweet after Politico wrote their preemptive piece speculating on what would be in it. This was like 6 weeks ago. Anyway,